Our journey is coming to an end. Our journey is coming to an end. It's hard to believe that we're in the last Sunday of Lent. Next week we have the big parade. We have the palms. We have the palms. This gospel lesson that we heard this morning is it's a difficult one. It sees Jesus in a way that we haven't seen him up to this point. It has Mary as one of the major characters, not Martha. Mary was one of the major characters. And it has Judas, who also becomes a major character during the Passion period between Palm Sunday and Good Friday. They're in the home of Lazarus. Lazarus, who only a few weeks prior to them being there, had been dead, had been put in the tomb, had been prepared, his body had been wrapped, the tomb had been sealed. And if you remember, Jesus wasn't there at that point. But as he started to come to the home of Lazarus, Mary and Martha came running out. And Mary was very brave and clear-spoken lady. And she said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, he would not have died." And if you remember, Jesus told her to not weep, but let's go back to the grave. And he entered, even though Mary had warned him that he had been in there long enough, Lazarus had been in there long enough that there would start to be a stench. But there wasn't a stench. And he went in and he raised Lazarus and brought him out. Now we flash ahead. We flash to 6 days before Passover. That means that they're 6 days away from the crucifixion. In our case, 12 days. They're 12 days, 6 days. They're gathered. Mary and Martha are serving people their dinner. Lazarus is laying on a sofa, a bed type of thing where they would stretch out around the table. Jesus is there, and the other disciples are all there too. This would have been for Jesus a very relaxing time. He'd had a very difficult 3 years with his ministry, constantly in conflict with the priests and the Pharisees, loved by the people that were the regular people. He had spent time healing. He had spent time preaching. And he had spent time developing his disciples to take over for him. It would have been a tiring, tiring time. And remember, he walked everywhere. They walked and they walked and they walked. And the area was dusty, hot. So when you visited someone's house, the first thing that would happen is that you would wash off your feet. Wash the dust off your feet. Now, in this case, Mary not only washes off the dust off his feet, but she pours on a perfume called nard, N-A-I-R-D. And it's from a plant that comes from Egypt. And you get a very small few drops of it from each plant. And it's very expensive. One of the other Gospels tell us it's worth 300 denarii. Well, the mathematicians, of course, had to figure out what that would cost. So in today's market, it would be between $45,000 and $50,000 US for a bottle. Expensive. Expensive. But expensive is in the eye of the beholder. Let's look at some examples. Leonardo DiCaprio, after he won his Oscar, decided to take a group of people out on a boat. He rented a yacht for 1 week. It cost $400,000 for the week. Extravagant? Maybe. Maybe. But at the time, he was worth $220 million. So maybe not that extravagant for him. Do you know what the most expensive hotel room is in the world? This is back about 5 years ago. $82,000 a night. It's the Royal Penthouse Suite, which has 12 bedrooms in it, at the Hotel President Wilson in Geneva. Who can afford that? Bill Gates. Bill Gates at that time was worth $79 billion. So it didn't likely appear to be extravagant to him. Now for you and I don't know about you, I'm sure you go to nothing but the top hotels as you travel. Fran and I tended to go to the lower priced ones, Holiday Inn Express or some of those. I wonder what you would get for $82,000 a night. I hope you got really good service. There's a story of $1 million bottle of perfume. It's considered to be the most expensive bottle. The bottle itself was built using 183 sapphires, 270,000 white diamonds, 15 pink diamonds, a 3-carat ruby, a 4-carat diamond, and various assortment of gems. All told, the bottle contained 2,909 precious stones that have been fashioned to resemble the New York skyline. It took 1,500 hours to build it. It's worth $1 million. I don't know who could afford it. Gates likely could. Other Hollywood stars likely could. But it wouldn't be something that you and I would race out to buy. Now, Mary, we don't think comes from a rich family. We have no idea what Lazarus did. In the stories that we've heard about him, it doesn't say that he was a trader or that he was a merchant of some type or that he was a spice dealer or anything like that. So we don't know. We know he has two daughters, or sisters, he has two sisters, Mary and Martha. We know nothing about the family. It could be that they were fairly well off. But friends, a $45,000 bottle of perfume to wash someone's feet is a great gift. A great gift. And it's obviously Mary was trying to find a way to say to Jesus, thank you for raising my brother, for bringing him back to us. That's what she was doing. But over and above that, she didn't just put the perfume on the feet. She didn't just massage it in. She didn't use her toga to wipe it off. She used her hair. Likely the softest thing that she could find in the room was her long black hair. And she used that. It was her gift to Jesus. Some of the writers suggest that Mary had the ability to see into the future. She saw that Jesus was coming to the end of his ministry and that his time of fighting with the priests and the Pharisees was coming to an end. Now what happens? This time of relaxing, this time of smelling this beautiful, beautiful perfume is spoiled by Judas. Judas says, Lord, why waste this? We could have given it to the poor. Now, Jesus knew that Judas really didn't give a hoot about the poor. He was in love with one thing and one thing only. It wasn't Jesus. It was money. Jesus knew that he was skimming money off of the money that they received in donations. It's hard to know whether the other disciples realized this or not, but Jesus certainly did. Now, Jesus usually used his sharp tongue to rebuke the priests and the Pharisees. But this time he turned it on one of his own disciples. And he said, Judas, why are you doing this? Why are you ruining my evening? Why are you doing this? Don't you realize that Mary is giving me a gift that would normally be given at the time of my death? Because what would happen is after someone dies, a group of ladies would come in, and their time, ladies, in our time now, it's a group of men in the Jewish faith, would come in and cleanse the body and perfume the body and wrap the body. And he's basically saying, look, I'm still with you. And she's giving me this gift. Her love is that great. She is giving me this gift. A put down. Jesus knows that Judas is going to be the one that's going to betray him. That's not a surprise to him. That's all part of the plan. It's all part of God's plan. This whole 3 years and a bit has been laid out by God. The ups and the downs of Jesus' ministry. Right to the time of the crucifixion, which happens next Friday. No, I'm sorry, it happens a Friday after, 2 Fridays so from now. To Easter, 3 days after, when Jesus rises from the dead. He dies for us. He rises for us. It's a gift from God, his only Son. When we look at this story, we see a person in Judas who has only love, and that love is himself and his money. We see the second story. This is a story of Mary, who has a great love for Jesus. All sorts of books have been written about the fact whether this is a physical love that she has for Jesus or whether this is an emotional love that she has. But she definitely has a love for Jesus. She recognizes the power that Jesus has. She recognizes that Jesus has the power to heal, the power to save, the power to give us an everlasting life if you listen to what he says. And now, interestingly enough, most times we hear about Mary, when Jesus was alive, she was at his feet listening. Remember, women had absolutely no status. They would not be allowed into the temple. They would not be allowed to be around a rabbi. And yet Mary always seemed to be there, just soaking up all the information that Jesus was sharing. And she wanted to share her love back. Now, how much is too much? Can we put a price on our love for Jesus? Can we put a price on our love for our spouse or our friends? You got an anniversary coming up next week, Jean and Ralph. Big one?
That was last year.
That was last year.
51.
51. Well, we've got you by a few years. It's a great time to celebrate an anniversary. One of the things you do at an anniversary is to reconnect your love, to share. Now, I don't know why it always seems to fall on the guy to have to come up with the nice present to give to the lady, but it's nice that happens. You always have to think. Now, as you know, there's a list that you're supposed to go by if you believe in tradition, certain things happen at certain times. What is it? 50 is gold, if I remember right, and pearl, I forget what it is, but you have all these sorts of things. So it gives you an idea of what you should be doing, sort of thing. We don't always do it, but we sometimes try. But hopefully we don't forget. That we do really work on, not forgetting. Birthdays and anniversaries. Two things that men should not forget. Life will be fine in your marriage if you can remember those two things, quite honestly. But what's that worth? Can we put it into dollars and cents? No, I don't think we can. Would it be a terrible thing if we didn't come in with a great present and flowers and perfumes and candies? No, I don't think it would be. It's nice to go out and have time together when you can do those sorts of things. For the last 2 years, we haven't been able to do those sorts of things. It's nice when family thinks enough of you that they will put on an event for you, a gathering. That's always kind of fun. But the two that are involved, they know that that's not what makes the marriage work. It doesn't make the marriage work. It's sharing. It's laughing. It's expecting. And not forgetting. Those are the sorts of things that makes the marriage work. Mary goes to Jesus, and she gives him not just the perfume, but the personal attention of washing his feet and using the softest thing she can find in the room, her hair, to massage his ankles and his feet. She didn't need Judas to destroy it for her. And Jesus was quick to defend her, which didn't normally happen back in Jesus' time. It would not normally be a put down to sort of protect a woman's position. But Jesus, think of his ministry. What was his ministry about? His ministry was about working with people who had very little. He healed the leopard who was unclean. If you had leprosy, you were put into a colony outside of the city. If you went through the city, you had to have someone ringing a bell ahead saying, leopard, 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 and everyone would separate as you went through. You were totally unclean. And Jesus went to them and he cured them. He brought sight to the blind. He took demons or mental illness out of people. He was constantly reaching down to the lowest level of our populations and giving them not just the healing power, but the love of God that flowed through him. Remember when he was walking through the crowd and a lady who had a constant bleeding problem for years touched his robe, and he immediately knew that there was someone that was drawing power off him. He could feel the power being drawn off him. He didn't criticize her. He wanted to identify her, and he healed her. He healed her. This was the Christ that Mary was in love with. This was the Christ that she spent 2/3 of a year's salary washing his feet. $45,000 US. That's what that cost. But there is no price, absolutely no price, that you can put on a love like that. We have the same love for Jesus. And there is no price that we can put on it, because we know he is there for us at all times, 24/7. Christ is there for us. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.